Are we live?
It says recording in progress. It does say live. I'm checking.
Guys, this is the first time we do this. You can see that we're experts in this matter. I was an AV nerd in high school.
And the lighting's pretty good.
Event will start soon. Wait for host to start.
So bear with us. We're super close to being live. And I just realized I'm running out of battery on my laptop. That's okay. We'll figure it out. I might. Do we have another charger? We may be live already and we don't know. We got no intro, we got no outro. This is Gonzo journalism, but applied to tech.
Wow.
And now we have power.
There you go.
We are live. Well, thanks everyone for joining in. I am Antonio, co-founder and CEO of BEM.
And I'm Upal, co-founder and CTO here at BEM.
You can tell this is our very first time doing this because this is the most professional live stream that you've ever tuned into. I was telling about that I used to be an AV nerd back in high school, but technology has changed quite a bit. And I just realized I called myself old. Today we're talking about enterprise automation. I have a little cheat sheet of a bunch of things we want to go through today. First of all, apologies to everyone. We delayed the stream by 1 hour. I have a 1-year-old at home that is a little sick, but she's much better now. I was thinking we could talk a little bit about the pivot that we've been experiencing for the last few weeks from sort of automation, how automation is shifting from purely the chatbot era into the infrastructure era. And I thought it was really timely because Upal just shared on our internal Slack this article that came out this morning from The Information about OpenAI. And I'm going to share my screen super quick so we can go through it. But I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about it. And
yeah, I mean, I think it was funny that it was so timely, like given just like, I think the shift that's being experienced in just enterprise kind of usage of AI, like at large. It's like, you know, it was funny when everyone was like, oh, chat is the primary and only interface. Human language is the next way to, like, you know, do a programming language and blah, blah. And then you kind of see that juxtaposed against even a lot of trends that people are trying to, I wouldn't say even accomplish in consumer, but push in consumer. Yeah. And I think the one, you know, agent use case that we were even hearing about in 2024 was like, oh, an automated shopping assistant will handle all of these things for you and quite magical. And it was like, I think being quite reductionist on actually the complexity of even like running e-commerce in like real time. And I think the Information article actually framed this like well, where it's like, look, it's one thing when using ChatGPT, it suggests some really great products for you to like buy.
Yeah.
You know, that can be a mix of a lot of old school techniques of like pulling things from ads and working with partners, as well as just more traditional like search. It's a whole nother thing to actually do the back end of completing that process, the checkout process, analyzing like inventory, making sure those things are kind of accurate, and then having an appropriate process to even fail when those issues do happen. Like, you know, while they are, albeit fairly rare nowadays with e-commerce, I think almost all of us have experienced like going through checkout and then like going through like a checkout and then be like, oh, your item is like out of stock. But like now trying to kind of handle that with an automated kind of agent like era is a whole different problem. And the problems even outlined in The Information are even more simple than that. It's something that you and I are quite familiar with, building ERPs and marketplaces in the past, which is things as simple as like, what is the display name of the actual piece of the that inventory and product like line item versus the actual SKU and the underlying real representation of that product. Like the list name for a PlayStation 5 on Amazon will actually slightly differ from Best Buy versus any other kind of e-commerce. Like, even though it is the same product, it's the same exact like SKU under the hood. And like the big challenge for these agents, even with the leading frontier model labs, like partnering with some of the largest and like most prolific and successful e-commerce companies you could think about across Shopify and Stripe, they're still hitting snags with these like problems very significantly. And I think another reason why this is so timely is we have something to demo around solving this problem within like BEM itself too.
So if I'm understanding correctly, it seems like OpenAI has been having trouble accessing this market of basically this e-commerce shopper experience where the input is an unstructured piece of data that is user intent, let's say.
Yeah.
However, the output does have to be something very discrete, very structured, very, let's call it specific.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, what the article was saying is that they've been having trouble on both the input, but also in merchant adoption of structuring the data.
Exactly.
Which I think is hilarious because I think ChatGPT and similar tools and agentic tools are extremely good at natural language to natural language interactions. Yeah. One where both the input and the output and the continuous interface is completely unstructured.
Yeah.
It's just narrative, it's just prose, it's very simple.
Yeah.
The moment that you want something very specific, as a customer, I don't expect a garble of words. I expect a specific cart with a specific order with the right price.
Yeah.
Charged to the right credit card.
Yeah. And on the merchant side of things, they want the right payment to be processed. They want to ensure that that inventory was in stock, and kind of all of those like steps in between of this kind of agentic process with the traces like in between of like, are both the buyer and the seller on the same page, and can this like intermediary stochastic like system actually arrange that in an agreement that makes sense?
Yeah, exactly. And that is infrastructure and it's protocols, not necessarily a chatbot.
Yeah.
The chatbot, the way I think about it is, I think we get a little bit mistaken when we talk about chatbots and agents in the market. The way we see an agent or a chatbot, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gopal, is it is an interaction paradigm.
Yeah.
It is an access pattern. However, you do need a, let's call it, almost pseudo-deterministic layer under the hood that represents clean data with clean hierarchies, with clean, not everything can just be vibes.
Yeah, and also trace back a step in the process. Like, even looking at that e-commerce example, it's like funny enough, like my girlfriend moved into a new apartment. She actually used ChatGPT before asking me about like what Wi-Fi router and like modem she should get like set up, and like it provided great suggestions. But then let's like kind of extend that, where if we did have this like e-commerce experience built straight into like ChatGPT, it's like cool. Now it's like, even though those suggestions were there and you can Google those suggestions, and even if some characters are off or something like that, you still get the right search results in that kind of deterministic manner across like Amazon or Newegg or Best Buy and like whatnot there. That's the first step. And then you want the system to be like, oh, I couldn't find that. Let me try some other search parameter. Let me try something fuzzy magic. Cool. You get to that point. Then you've got to actually add that to the cart and then figure out and validate whether that's in inventory or not. If that doesn't work, then you need to flip back and have some other kind of process like that. Then there's that payment process. And it's like, is these step-by-step interactive pieces that really break down and become extremely lossy over time, especially as, and when you model this out, this is something we talk about internally as an engineering team, especially a lot, is like, that's just a partially observable Markov decision. You don't actually know which step is going to fail. You don't know the probability in actuality that each piece is going to go through. And unlike you as a human, where it's like, if you hit a snag on a step, you reflexively, we know how to use a browser. We know how to shop online. You reflexively will just do a lot of these things without actually thinking twice about it.
It's funny because we've been calling it Markov chains for the longest time.
Yeah.
I saw there's a new GitHub repo last night that fixes, and this is the first time that I actually hear this expression, the context rot of Claude Code,
Ooh.
which is essentially the guy, the way that
Yeah.
he was explaining it in this video, he's like, well, the context rot problem is how the first token is infinitely more valuable than the 100,000th token.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait. I think what we're talking about is the same thing.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is every call to inference is lossy, it's
Yeah.
stochastic, and the more calls to make, I think agentic sounds incredibly appealing, but the more calls you make, the more likely it is that it's going to be making a mistake that only compounds an error.
Exactly.
It's like a deep fried meme.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of people in our audience know what a deep fried meme
I feel
is.
like that's a pretty well-aged concept.
But it's the idea that if you keep compressing a JPEG over and
Yeah.
over and over, the artifacts are such that it looks, there's a lot of SpongeBob, like
Yeah.
deep fried memes and whatnot.
I'm
It's
a fan.
exactly the same. It's just
Yeah.
compression.
Yeah.
I think it's really timely. So without knowing this article would be published,
Yeah.
yesterday night, I was preparing a demo for today called Instacart 2.0. And so we'll look at it in a little bit. I wanted to talk about what's in and what's out, right? I know, Upal, you and I talk a lot in the office about the difference between this idea of one-shot prompt help
Yeah.
versus structuring data.
Mhm.
And I'm really curious about, I think you were mentioning the other day how baseline OCR is getting better and better.
Yeah.
Now we have Mistral, we have DeepSeek, but the raw models still break on edge cases without elegant abstractions on top.
Yeah. No, I think it's like, there's like two things that could be true, where it's like, it's awesome to see like the zero shot performance coming out of these OCR models, but then also how much you need to do on top just to even make sense of what is like coming out in an elegant or even like a clean like way. And I think probably the funniest kind of examples of this is like you look at even just the Hugging Face cookbooks of the Mistral and DeepSeek and latest like Qwen and other kind of vision like open source models, and almost every single one of them, they have to write at least some quick and dirty way to just remove repeat characters of just like, what if there's a bunch of dashes or white space that actually don't exist in the layout or even visually in a document, but these models just continue to kind of trip up on. So there is this like this kind of one-shot prompting hell, as we've been calling it, where it's like, okay, if you're like just trying to just like kind of brute force a lot of these capabilities and like try to, let's say, handle a lot of like a priori, you don't actually know what's going to be going into your like OCR or vision like system, trying to kind of drink the ocean and like capture all of these. It's very difficult if you're just handling it with just a prompt like itself. Because as we've seen from customers who've onboarded with us, it's like the second you get something with a slightly new layout, you fall into like an analogous problem to previous computer vision where you had to draw bounding boxes on things. And if new things fell out of that bounding box, they break. Now, the analogy I want to make is just prompts. It's like you have a prompt, it works really well to pull the data out like that you need from a few classes or rule sets of documents. And then all of a sudden you get like something you hadn't seen before, you weren't anticipating, and it could be the same class of, let's say it's like an invoice, but something else is out of place, or the line items are in two columns rather than just like one column on that order. And then boom, your prompt breaks. Then you edit the prompt, and then you get regressions on all these other things. Even though the raw actual capability of the model has improved significantly, there's still all of these nuances and like what you actually need to do and the intent of handling that data on the other end that don't actually get captured by just baseline like improvements here.
And I think we see it with our users and prospects every single day. The conversation is always, I tried model X, Y, and Z, or platform A and B, and everything works except this one thing that fails. But because this one thing fails, the whole thing sucks. And we've seen this with Amazon, I think it's called
Bedrock Data Automation,
Bedrock BDA.
BDA.
We've seen this with Reducto. We've seen this with Qwen. We've seen this with. It's not a problem of the model.
No, not at all.
And yesterday, I think you were saying something really interesting when Upal and I were talking about this, where essentially how treating document structuring in isolation is a mistake.
Yeah.
And we should go more into, it's not about unpacking a document, but creating almost like a decision protocol.
Yeah, I think, kind of jumping off of even just that last kind of invoice like example I mentioned, where it's like, the previous kind of generation of enterprise software, where it was all about the now state and current state of data, where it's like you take an invoice, you insert it into your ERP, or it affects your warehouse management system in some way, or it goes into your accounts like payable in some way. But that's just a representation of that invoice. It doesn't actually have anything to do with the intent. Like an invoice to one person could be something where it's like, oh, I am factoring this invoice. I need to provide some kind of rate that I will buy this invoice off someone to give them a temporary loan of like sorts. Versus like, oh, like actually, this is my own invoice that I need to actually pay for. Like this is a vendor of mine that sent me this. Then there's like, then going one step in, it's like, what are the net terms? It's like, okay, then when should I pay for this? Is this actually what I agreed to pay for? Like, it is just an artifact of like, is the artifact of like a whole process at large, and in a sense, a protocol, just like making an API call to someone else is. It is like the start of a transaction and a representation of that, but it actually doesn't tell you the whole story. And what's more important to kind of build on top of that, that we are building towards and want to help our customers like capture is like, what actually comes out of that? What are the decisions that need to be made out of that? What is the context? How does this relate to not just your own like data ontology, but like what decisions need to be made out of this, and not just treating it as an isolated kind of piece to analyze there.
And I think we've been pretty obsessive about the fact that it's not just about the raw data, but it's like about exactly what do you do with it and what's the intent behind it.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny, right? I think at the end of the day, we've obsessed so much on the model, on the raw inference layer, that I kept seeing people in the market asking, what is the application layer? But the application layer is precisely what we're talking about. It is what decision or what workflow are you actually automating with that data?
Exactly.
And I think I've seen both ends. I've seen people that obsess over the workflow and nothing else, no data, everything is vibes. I'll never forget, I remember talking to a billing automation startup that was saying, oh, we don't have any data structuring problems because nothing is structured in our system. Everything is just a blob of words. And the idea of running a company with a blob of knowledge kind of fuzzily circulating makes me incredibly uncomfortable, especially when it comes to invoicing and billing.
It reminds me of that, like that Succession quote where it's like, what are words? Just like complicated airflow. Like,
exactly. And I think it was really funny because the guy was looking at me like I was crazy. He's like, why would you structure data if agents are just like inherently unstructured by nature? I'm like, well, but these are invoices and they're contracts, and there is a system of record. There was a little bit of a debate at the end of last year, a few weeks ago, about is the system of record still a valid thing nowadays? Or is it just agents, right? I remember there was a really good expose from JAD Foundation about this. There have been a couple of posts throughout the holiday break. The fact of the matter is, I think personally, there's always going to be room for deterministic storage and things that are predictable.
Of course.
And whether you have, why not treat agents and inference as an access pattern to that data?
To ground truth that's there.
Exactly, with ground truth that is well clean, structured. I think, and we'll see it in the demo in a little bit, but I think the way we approach this problem is a lot of our customers do build agents. They just build them on top of whatever data we've structured, and we focus on building ground truth. If you think about data as a medallion architecture, which a lot of companies do, our entire focus is to get that data from bronze or not even bronze into gold in a matter of seconds, as opposed to having a whole team of people just manually cleaning it up. Then you can build agents, and whether the agents are actually doing good stuff with that data or not is up to them. But I feel much more comfortable using an agent as UX.
Yes, exactly.
And perhaps the way to describe it is an agent replaces buttons. And it replaces clicks, and it replaces high density visualization. it does not replace the ability to have a reliable, structured snapshot of your business.
Yeah, it's like there's like those two like pretty huge factors in running any process as like a human, like right now, where it's like, first of all, it's like you have to like get and collect and like organize the data even as a human in a way that you can make a decision on top of it. Then after that is actually running all those decisions. Like right now, a lot of that involves humans manually entering data into some kind of system of record and then punching the buttons in the system of record to lead to that operation or that decision. Now both of those are becoming, like, thankfully, like fuzzier just with a lot of these stochastic systems that we do have now, but we still need both of those pieces to communicate like effectively.
Yes.
And then also just highlight and understand the strengths and limitations of each side, like too.
I think another way to think about the human glue problem is how. Oh, Caleb, I see Caleb saying Antonio's the sticker king. Thank you so much. So, by the way, I'll use this moment to brag about my stickers. A lot of these stickers are actually cloth patches. And so for the longest time, I made a promise to myself that I would only have cloth patches on my laptop. Eventually, I got a bunch of stickers. This sticker is from the Mother Duck Small Data Conference. Shout out to Mother Duck. This is a bunch of our stickers. I just didn't want to limit ourselves to like just cloth patches. It's also incredibly, putting a cloth patch on your laptop means you have to use a lot of Scotch tape, which is super gross. So we were talking about the human glue. I actually think it's really funny. The way that I think about BEM is we're not in the business of removing humans. That is one reason why we've had a beef with a few companies in our ecosystem for the longest time, because their entire pitch as a company is stop hiring humans, replace them with our latest AI salesperson, our latest AI BDR. And in reality, it's really funny. We've gone from having terrible, terrible software. Mm-hmm. I don't think people understand. I think people do understand. Most software out there is crap.
Yeah.
It's never been new. It's funny that people talk about slop.
Yeah.
We've been making slop for decades, and we didn't need AI to make slop.
Yeah.
And so instead of actually thinking, okay, how do we increase the value of software tenfold by enabling human beings to actually do their best work, people immediately went, oh no, of course, the next step is replacing humans.
Yeah.
And the way I think about BEM is that we're not about removing humans, we're about removing the glue so that humans can do their best work.
Yeah.
One really interesting thing you mentioned to me the other day is how customers, this happened to us, this has happened like tons of times, including when we were onboarding people in our previous company, Silo.
Yeah.
Customers often realize their data assumptions were wrong only after they start processing at scale.
Exactly.
Which is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah, we've had a few realizations that where it's like when you're forced to only have a surface level analysis of your own data, there are anomalies that pop up that can actually be just in a large part like red herrings as to what the actual underlying like data quality like is. Like we've had customers like on board and be like, oh, like we think we have problems with here's a real example. Like we get thousands of emails a day about like shipments that we're getting in. We think we have a bit of a data ingestion quality problem because those shipments are split across multiple those orders are split across multiple like emails that outline different shipments. Then they actually like started processing at scale that data, and they were like, actually, we saw like 0 instances of that like assumption that we made, and we actually wouldn't have came to this actual fixed conclusion and like actually seeing the reality if not for actually being able to like not just process this like unstructured data at scale. Like now we actually making operational decisions on like what we actually do need to fix. Yeah. Very physical real world processes there.
I completely agree. I mean, I think we've seen this across finance, supply chain and logistics, insurance. A lot of people make assumptions about their data. I can't blame them. It's really hard. Yeah. There's nothing is intuitive about, as a human being, understanding what a data set of hundreds of thousands of inputs may look like.
Yeah.
And maybe you look at some anecdotal, inputs A, B, and C, and you think, oh,
Yeah.
we're usually missing this and that, when in reality, that's
Exactly.
not at all the problem.
Yeah.
I wanted to take the time. I know we have 5 minutes left. I wanted to take the time to show off a little bit of a couple of demos that we've built
Awesome.
in the last 24 hours. One very relevant to the article from The Information about OpenAI and Stripe and Instacart's issues at understanding human intent and actually generating good carts. So I'm going to share my screen. Matt is behind the scenes coordinating everything, by the way, and I really messed up with my screen sharing earlier. So I'm going to try my best to do it again. Can you see? I think it's still black.
It's black right now.
Do you see Antonio's laptop in there? This is life, guys. None of this is. I think you have to click at the stage. If you see it below.
Yeah, if you click add the stage, it adds you into the view on the left.
Small intermission, guys. Give us 1 second. Because I saw this before. There you go. So if you do this, and then you do this, boom! And you guys just saw my cheat sheet. All right, we're back online. So I actually wanted to show off a couple of workflows that I was working on late last night. Let's talk about Instacart. So something that has been bothering me actually is I use Instacart a lot. And for the longest time, I was thinking, well, I just want to be able to like literally tell to Instacart, like, bread, you already know what I purchase. It's in my past purchases aisle.
Yeah.
I think with that article in The Information, I empathize a lot more with the team, and I empathize a lot more with OpenAI because it's not an easy problem to solve.
No.
So I took it upon myself to try to build a workflow in BEM that captured that kind of process. And so you'll see in the screen here, I basically built a workflow in BEM that takes in pictures of shopping lists. You'd be surprised the amount of random images of shopping lists that people upload to Reddit. So shout out to the subreddit called Found Paper. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to taking pictures of like scraps of paper found on the street.
Yeah.
And you could train a whole model on those. So here you can actually see, for example, a grocery list. This is actually the first grocery list. Oh, wow, there's a lot of inappropriate items also in that list. I'll switch lists. But you can see that it has apples, bananas, bread. What I basically built in BEM, and let me go back to the original one, is the first thing we do is analyze the shopping list and essentially say, well, what are the items, right? So we use the analyze function in BEM. It detects that we have apples, bananas, bread. It works really well with both audio, video, but also handwritten notes and PDFs. And then there is an enrichment step that is kind of interesting. So this is kind of what OpenAI has been struggling with, which is this idea that taking unstructured data and then making sense of it from a structured standpoint. And I would say it actually works pretty well. I created a synthetic data set of different products from Safeway, Lucky Market, Berkeley Bowl. Shout out Berkeley Bowl, they're a great store. And essentially it identifies the closest match from a name and SKU code and category perspective. So essentially, if you're building an ERP or a food ordering experience, wink, wink, Instacart, give us a call or answer our emails. You can essentially just feed this and it will give you automatically the match. We deal with the vectorization. You have an option in BEM to do either a pure semantic search or exact just text similarity or a hybrid one. Hybrid has been super helpful, at least for me, because you don't always know as an engineer what data you're going to get. Sometimes it's just naming conventions. Sometimes it's Gala apples to Fuji apples. You just don't know. All in all, I had a bunch of fun last night building this. I also small teaser for next week. We're launching video support. So I was testing out. I found a YouTube short of a nice gentleman showing us how to make bouillabaisse, and essentially fed it to the same analyze function in a way that first it extracted all of the ingredients necessary to make a bouillabaisse, and then it enriched with all of the ingredients necessary to do it from a store perspective,
Nice.
with SKU, with code, with everything. Shout out bouillabaisse. The last time I had one was in Marseille with my good friend Baptiste. If you ever in Marseille, just go to the port. They make the best bouillabaisse, and they're beautiful views. Don't fall for tourist
I can't
places.
imagine the next time I'll be
It's-
in Marseille, but maybe the audience can. Yeah.
The other workflow that I was building last night was actually more of a realistic. So we have a bunch of supply chain and logistics customers, and I was trying to build the most complex supply chain sort of set of docs that I could. So I actually found that a lot of the like Maersk's and similar will publish vessel voyage docs that are tens or hundreds of pages long with a combination of essentially everything. So I'm going to rerun it actually because this one failed. This document is hundreds of pages long. While it's running, let me show you a little bit of what I was working on. So in this case, I was able to send a freight bill. You'll see on screen that it looks really, really gnarly, completely handwritten on the side. And then it gets routed through a routing function, classified as a freight bill, and then extracted. So you could have an experience in your ERP or TMS where this is sent via an email, we parse it out, structure it. It kind of looks sort of like perfectly like structured as to your schema, and it's fully customizable. Similarly, with this document that I found, which is basically a customs package with a bunch of pages, you'll see that there's like a finger in one of the photos, like someone is taking a photo from a corner. It basically extracts. First, it makes the routing of like, hey, this is a customs form package. And then it does the extraction. And then it does the enrichment. So I was able to actually enrich it with an existing BOL in my system, which is more along the lines of what you and I were talking about earlier, which is decisioning based on data, not just the, let's call it the data itself. And that's for the longest time where BEM is moving. We're moving away from purely data extraction.
Exactly.
We think that we've squeezed almost every ounce of quality and value that we can out of data extraction, aside from a few things that are not necessarily related to the models themselves, but about the protocol, the way we use them. And so to me, it's incredibly clear that if today in 2026, what in my opinion is out, and it's been out for a while, but it's now confirmed, if you're still working on pure data extraction and structuring, you're out. The inevitable reality is that the main competitor here is building this yourself.
Exactly.
All of our customers share something in common. They are highly technical teams. They know they can build something like BEM themselves. So the reason to buy something like BEM has to be, it works incredibly well. It offers something that would take me probably millions of dollars to build, and I want to move faster. And so we don't try to pretend. It's funny. A lot of people will try to have these modes where they say, well, our model is the best model, and your team could never build a model. And for the longest time, the model has been the mode because it is understood that most people don't build their own models. That's no longer a reality. We have 3 billion parameter models that do incredibly like 95% accuracy data extraction. You can run them off of a like mainstream graphics card. And so that is no longer the issue. If you're still focusing your value in that in 2026, you're done. You're not done today, but you'll be done in the next 3 to 6 months. And so I think we realized pretty early in the early last year that our value and the reason why our customers come to us is not because we have some fake moat. We don't build our own models. We use every model available out there, and always the best model. They don't pay us to build the best model. They pay us to choose the best model so that they don't have to, and then build the protocols on top of it. So incredibly excited. This is still running, by the way. Just for context, this is an incredibly long document. We don't fake demos at BEM. You can't expect this document to be processed in just like seconds. It takes a little while. For context, I can actually show you guys what this document looks like here. but it's essentially a vessel manifest of the entire vessel's contents. So it includes essentially a gazillion bills of lading, all of these different goods. And so as soon as it comes out, I'll show it on screen. But this is the kind of document that we deal on a daily basis. You don't just want to take, this has been generated by a computer. Yeah. So the problem isn't data availability, it's what you do with it and how well is it structured.
Exactly.
Super excited to show you guys this. I think we're going to be doing this live stream basically every week. Teaser next week, Thursday, same time. Matt and I are going to be talking about video. So BEM now supports video. We have a bunch of people already using it. It works really well for things like e-commerce, retail intelligence, UCG validation, for example. So that's a use case that we've seen a lot.
Yeah.
Ad validation and curation, especially with shorter videos, but you can pretty much use it for anything. And you'll see that on our website, we've actually added a really interesting example on supply chain where you can actually use supply chain video to not just extract incidents. For example, this is a synthetic video that I generated of the back of a truck. We've seen this kind of situation a bunch, Upal and I, when we were working in logistics, but also enriching it with response, meaning what is the response to an incident? What is the decision making? You'll see us releasing more stuff in the next few weeks about decision making. That is the last, let's call it, missing link of BEM. And we're going to be releasing some really, really cool stuff along those lines. Yeah, thank you guys so much. This is still running. As I mentioned, we don't fake demos in BEM. It sometimes takes a while.
I think it did finish, or maybe just something.
So it's probably a bug in the front end. But essentially, just to show you guys, we can actually see it from the accuracy tab. And I'm going to go into the function that processes these just to show you. And I get no transformations. That is really, wait, hold on a second. It's not a real demo if it doesn't have a bug. But anyways, hopefully it was useful. We'll do another one next week. Give us suggestions on what you want to see most. And thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, guys.